We have a quorum of the committee consisting of council members for Ward 1, Brianna Doe, at-large member Anita Bonds, and Ward 4 council member Brandon Todd. We have one matter on the agenda today, which is the approval of the committee's fiscal year 2020 budget report and recommendations. I'll begin by summarizing the major aspects of the committee reports. The Committee on Recreation and Youth Affairs is responsible for matters concerning recreation and committed youth. District agencies, boards, and commissions that come under the committee's purview are Department of Park and Recreations, Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, and the Office of East of the River Services. The Office of the Father, Men, and Boys. The committee works closely with these agencies, district residents, and community advocates to craft careful and deliberate policies for recreation and youth affairs. The committee held budget oversight hearing on the following dates: April the 1st, with DYRS, April the 5th, 2019, Department of Parks and Recs, April the 25th, Office of Father, Men, and Boys. The committee received important comments from members of the public during these hearings. The committee continues to welcome public input on the agencies and activities within its purview. The mayor's proposed fiscal year 2020 operating budget for DPR is $58,700. $58,700,000, which is an increase of approximately $2,200,000 or 3.9% from the fiscal year 2019 approved budget. This fund supports 769.1 full-time equivalents, or FTEs, which is a decrease by 0.7% from the approved budget in fiscal year 2019. This increase is largely due to a new proposed one-time park partnership with certain business improvement districts that can be used for operations and other needs in our parks, totaling approximately $1.7 million, and a cost of living adjustment for employees totaling $1.4 million in FY 2020. The mayor's proposed budget, transferring $1.9 million and 27 FTEs from the agency's Roving Leader program to the Office of Neighborhood Safety Engagement, or the WANS office. The Roving Leaders are staff members that provide specialized outreach services to the district youth who are at highest risk of negative social behaviors to the community. Instead, they engage in meaningful activities like recreation, business skills, education activities, training, as well as connecting families with government and community resources. The agency testified that it was in support of WAN's mission to provide community-based strategies to help prevent violence and increase public safety. The Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety did not accept the transfer of the Roving Leaders. Also, there were a number of Roving Leaders who reached out that expressed their desire not to be transferred. The Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety did not believe that the office is prepared for the rapid growth that the transfer of the Roving Leaders would entail. Thanks to a transfer of Councilmember Che and the Committee on Transportation and Environment, this budget funds the Healthy Parks Amendment Act of 2018, which improves the nutrition and quality of meals distributed in the District of Columbia Parks and Recreation and requires expanded participation in the Summer Food Service Program. The committee made minor adjustments to the mayor's proposed operating budget for DPR. We wanted to ensure that there was funding to continue excellent program at DPR, such as Fit DC program, which had great success in many wards, including Ward 8. As a result, the committee decreased 4 vacant positions and made 1% cut in the fringe rate. These changes were certified by the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. In terms of the capital budget for DPR, they committed and received several transfers from other committees to make improvements to recreation services throughout the city. I would like to thank Councilmember Todd for transfers of small funds for park projects at Riggs, Crestwood, Emory Heights, and at the 9th and Gallatin location. I would like to thank Councilmember Nadeau for transfers of funds for small parks and improvements at Hargrove Park and throughout the ward, and to instill a splash park at LeDroy Park. I would like to thank Councilmember McDuffie and Che for transfers to support renovations at the Arboretum Community Center. Councilmember McDuffie also sent money for improvements to the Langland Dog Park. Finally, I would like to thank Councilmember Allen for sending funds to accelerate the renovations of the historic Joy Fieldhouse, to replace the playground at 17th and C Street Southeast, and to renovate the field at Jefferson Middle School. This capital budget includes funding for rehabbing of the Benton Park Recreation Center, for improvements to Stay Park in Ward 2, and improvements to Theodore Hagen's Cultural Center, for the Therapy Recreation Center in Ward 7, and for the Chevy Chase Community Center and Hurst Pool in Ward 3. As relates to Ward 8, there has been enhanced funding for the Congress Heights Recreation Center, which will be an intergenerational hub that caters to families, given that Ward 8 has the most youth in the District of Columbia. There are also funds for a new recreation center for neighborhoods in Anacostia near Guilford Road, and funding for a new Douglas Recreation Center, which was funded by the mayor. The committee proposed a budget for the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services of $89.8 million, which will fund 578.5 FTEs. The committee largely kept the mayor's budget as proposed, except for changes to provide additional funding for the Credible Messenger program. These funds are intended to support the agency in taking a larger role in violence intervention and prevention amongst its youth. DYRS began the Credible Messenger initiative in the fall of 2016 to support its case management team and provide mentoring services for committed youth and families. This program brings together people with similar life experience to engage with youth and young adults, primarily to assist and mentor the youth with the goal of helping them transforming their attitude and behaviors to a more positive, productive outlook. The credible messengers might be returning citizens who have demonstrated integrity in their own transformation, thereby understanding and relating to many of the challenges facing our committed youth. We heard a lot from their testimony here during several hearings. Credible messengers are identified by providers who screen and vet applicants before undergoing rigorous background checks, drug screening, and a variety of clearances from several local and federal agencies. The committee commends the work of the Credible Messenger Initiative that has produced at this point. Look forward to the working with DYRS in its efforts to expand this initiative. Currently, the entire DYRS budget is comprised entirely of local funds. The committee recommends the DYRS seek federal funding to supplement the budget for FY20 and be able to better serve the youth in our care. The capital budget for DYRS was approved as proposed and contains funding for HVAC and a backup generator, as well as improvements to the entrance and roof on the Youth Services Center, also known as YC. The committee did not make changes to the operating budget of the Office of Father, Men, and Boys, which had a budget of $231,000, which funds only 2 FTEs. The committee does suggest that the office should collect all gatherable data from its events and host it and interactions with the community. This will allow the office to gauge the effectiveness of its efforts and allow for more effective oversight of the committee. The Mayor's Office of East River Services. The committee did not make changes to the operating budget of this new office. The purpose of this office is to ensure that residents and neighbors in Wards 7 and 8 have access to quality government services and amenities. The office is currently staffing up and developing the protocols and operating procedures to meet its mission. The proposed operating budget for Office of East River Services FY20 is $1,369,000 to support 9 FTEs. The Budget Support Act. The committee, in consultation with the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety, struck 2 subtitles jointly referred to both committees. I would defer to the rationale given by the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety related to those subtitles. The committee would like to work with the chairman to include the 3rd subtitle referred to committee at the at-large Committee of the Whole budget submission. Transfers. This budget made several transfers to other committees. One priority of the committee was to ensure stronger educational experience for youth that interact with DYRS. To this end, we have found funds to fund the Student in Care of DC Act, introduced by Councilmember Grasso. We have transferred funds to the Committee on Education to fund employees who will work to resolve issues that students who are detained, committed, incarcerated, and in foster care to improve educational outcomes. Along these lines of funding supports for vulnerable youth. This budget funds the Committee on Human Services and supports the Close Family Caregivers Act of 2019, which provides subsidy to close members of youth in need of guardianship. Currently, such funding is only available to grandparents of youth in need of guardianship. Similarly, this budget I want to thank Councilmember Nadeau for his support of this as well. Similarly, this budget transfers $250,000 to Committee on Judiciary to fund violence prevention contracts to Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and sends additional funds to support expanding elder abuse and community engagement at the Office of the Attorney General. Along the lines of expanding access to justice, the budget transfers $150,000 to the Committee of the Whole to support UDC law graduates that will be placed in Ward 8 to provide free and low-cost legal services. Finally, the committee has transferred $300,000 to the Committee on Business, Economic Development to expand the Ward 7 and 8 Entrepreneurship Grant, which promotes entrepreneurship by granting funds of up to $10,000 for local residents to expand and start their businesses. The committee also transferred money to Committee on Government Operations to expand in the Office of African American Affairs. In closing, the committee is proud to move this budget that expands recreation opportunities in all 8 wards of the district, improve public safety by providing funds for violence interruption, support vulnerable youth, and expands access to justice in the District of Columbia. At this time, I will recognize any members who wish to make a comment. Councilmember Bonds.
Thank you, Chairman Trayon White, and many thanks to the Council Budget Office and your committee staff and all that have worked hard on this draft of the Recreation and Youth Affairs Committee report that we have before us today. I will be brief, but there are a few items I just wanted to mention. As chair of the Housing and Neighborhood Revitalization Committee, it's easy to say I am thrilled to see that you have sent funds to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety to ensure the funding of at least one FTE for the Elder Abuse Section Chief in the Office of the Attorney General. This is especially important because it will help defer fraudulent and abusive behavior towards our most vulnerable residents. I'm also pleased to know that the Creditable Messengers program will be receiving an increase in funding so that they may continue their mission in assisting and mentoring our youth, all the while ensuring the recidivism rate decreases. Making a meaningful investment in the future of our youth is important to give them opportunities for successful living. I agree with your recommendation of sending $250,000 to the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement in order to expand violence and intervention contracts. Although the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement was not prepared for the transfer of the mayor's proposed $1.9 million and the 27 FTEs, the recommended funding will help thaw the violence amongst our youth in the traditional locations where they tend to occur in neighborhoods. I'm in agreement with your decision to retain the Roving Leaders Program within Parks and Recreation Department footprint, and because I believe that these conflicts, these relationships that the roving leaders make, these relationships which are made to prevent conflict and build on students' understanding, has greatly contributed to maintaining peaceful environments within our public school system. So bravo for your decision, and thanks again for your leadership in this committee.
Thank you, Councilman Bonds. At this time, we recognize Councilmember Nadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for all the work you and your staff have done to produce this committee budget report. I want to congratulate you on your first budget report out of this new committee. I appreciate your time working with me in my office to ensure that our shared values were reflected in this budget. As chair of the Committee on Human Services, I appreciate the value of the agencies under this committee as part of the continuum of services that improve the lives of district residents and their families. I'm pleased that this budget expands the Credible Messenger initiative at DYRS. When the agency was under my committee, I saw firsthand the impact that Credible Messengers have had on the lives of DYRS youth and I look forward to this committee overseeing the expansion of that program.